and thank you so much for being here with all of us at Cat Camp at Home. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. Thank you, Jackson, so much, and thank you, Christina. I am going to be doing a new talk today. It's called Baby Steps. It's all about giving little kittens a big head start. I'm really looking forward to hearing all of the different life stages. After this, we're going to be hearing about adult cats and senior cats. But of course, we're starting with kittens because life begins here, at birth and those first critical weeks and months of life. Every single cat starts as a young and impressionable kitten. So that's what I'll be talking about today. I do want to say thank you so very much to Pet Ag for sponsoring this talk. Thank you to them for all of the wonderful products that they create to help people take better care of kittens. I also want to mention, if you want to learn more about kittens, you can do that in my webinar series. I have about 8 hours of content. So I won't be able to get to everything that goes into kitten care today, but if you head to kittenlady.org/webinar, you'll find a lot of great content there, as well as in my book, Tiny But Mighty, 300 plus pages of information about kitten care. But today I'm going to really be focusing on the importance of early experience for kittens. I'm going to be talking about the emotional, physiological, psychological, and social needs of kittens that can help make a meaningful difference in their life. We really can impact, things like their personality, their preferences, their habits. A little background on me. I am a humane educator focusing on neonatal kittens, but I actually went to school for psychology. And so when I'm raising my babies, I'm really doing it with their developmental psychology at the front of my mind. I think that so much of who a cat becomes really does start in kittenhood. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I think this applies as well for humans. Obviously, as a 33-year-old woman, I can think about all of my kind of personality traits and my idiosyncrasies and maybe some of my neuroses. I can trace a lot of that back to experiences I had when I was just a little kid. So I wanted to start by kind of asking you to think about yourself and your past and what are some of the things that may have led to who you ended up becoming as an adult. Think about it. Were you raised as an only child, or were you raised with 10 brothers and sisters? Did you grow up on a farm, or were you raised in a big city? How were you treated when you did something that broke the rules? Did you eat the same food every single night, or did you try lots of different kinds of foods? All of these types of questions we can ask ourselves about our past. They might bring up some happy memories, they might bring up even some sad memories, but there's no doubt that the experiences that we went through when we were young really do contribute to the person that we do become. And I want to say, if you do have any sad memories from your past, I have personally found nothing more healing than having the opportunity to give a beautiful, loving, nurturing home to young kittens. So fostering might just be for you too. It is a really healing thing, and it's a gift not just to the kittens, but also to the caregiver. Now, experience is not everything. You can raise a whole room full of kittens and give them the exact same care, the same toys, the same food, and you're still going to have differences between them. And that's because, just like with humans, where there is nature versus nurture, the same thing applies with kittens. There are biological differences in kittens. There are medical differences in kittens. And there are different little experiences that kittens are going to have that are beyond your control. So, if you're looking at your cat and saying, what did I do to make you who you are? It's okay. Every single cat is an individual, and that's what makes it so wonderful to get to know them. But I just want to say experience is not everything. However, we can, through experience, give them a big head start in some really important ways. One big example of that is socialization of kittens. Here you have two different kittens who are from the same exact litter. They're the same exact age. They're both about 7.5 weeks in this photo, but they have different life experiences. Apple on the left, she was found outdoors when she was only about 2 weeks old. So she was raised in a human home with me. She was raised to know that humans are your friend. We're the ones providing you with food. She knew what it was to, be in a warm blanket, cuddled up in my bed. And so for her, you can stick a little straw hat on her head and she's still gonna love you afterwards and wanna cuddle you. Then take a look at Crabapple, that's her brother, but he was not found until he was 7 weeks old. And so for Crabapple, he had a different experience growing up. He was probably friends with squirrels and possums, and he was used to feeling the wind go through the trees, and he's not used to being in a human home. And so for him, when he sees a human, it's a really scary experience for him. So you can see how even in a matter of weeks, the experiences that they have really do make a difference in their preferences and their behaviors. Of course, Crabapple, he did come around very quickly. He was able to become a loving and social cat who is now thriving in his forever home. And the reason for that is because kittens really are adaptive. They adapt very quickly. And so, I want to tell you that even if you have a kitten who has had some kind of trauma in the past, this is Archie, who I raised just a couple months ago. Archie went through some serious physical trauma as a baby before he was rescued. But you can see here, he was just so loving, loved the opportunity to be in a foster home where he could experience that nurturing. And so they do really adapt very quickly, especially when they're presented with a loving, well-rounded, nurturing home. The gift of nurturing, it really is something that can't be overstated. When we nurture a kitten, we're giving them the opportunity to have their physiological needs met. We're supporting their cognitive development, their motor skills, which are just beginning at these ages. We are ensuring that they have emotional well-being, they feel safe. We're helping them to build their social skills with humans, with strangers, with cats maybe, and even maybe with other animals. We can also help them develop healthy routines so that they feel really confident in knowing what to expect every day, as well as confidence with novel experiences, things that are unfamiliar, giving them those coping skills. And then finally, we can teach them appropriate behaviors so that they can have success in their forever home. Even if you're the one who is raising your kitten and you're the one keeping them, kittenhood is a really important time to get in the groove of those appropriate behaviors so that they can have behaviors that are successful for them and also successful for you as the caregiver. So if you ever took a psychology class, you've probably heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So I thought it would be fun to make a Kitten Lady spin on it. The hierarchy of needs is really the idea that you have these fundamental needs that absolutely have to be met. That is the foundation. And then from that foundation, you can build upwards towards self-actualization. So those basic needs for kittens are things like food, water, warmth, protection from predators and hazards. They have to have those needs met. And if they don't have those needs met, then it's very hard for them to focus on achieving anything beyond those needs. And so with this we're trying to meet those basic needs, and then we can move up towards those higher needs, help them blossom and achieve their full potential. Do things like have bonding with playmates and caregivers, have those esteem needs met of having routines and also enrichment and novelty. And the goal, of course, being self-actualization, being a truly fulfilled cat in their loving forever home. So you're going to hear me say a lot, routines and novelty. And I'm going to talk mostly about routines to begin with, because routines are your basic foundation of helping a kitten feel safe. It's a baseline experience that sends the message to the kitten that, hey, you know that you're going to have your needs met. You know to expect that you're going to have food, you're going to have bathroom relief, you're going to be warm, you're going to have shelter. A kitten shouldn't feel anxious about these things. We're meeting their basic needs. They are habit building creatures who thrive with routines. And for the first several weeks of life, we're really not, we're not introducing anything that's meant to be novel to them, although everything is novel to them. Through repetition, we're showing them that this is a routine. It's not that you're just going to be fed today. You're also going to be fed tomorrow and the next day. And they grow to expect that and feel really confident in that, so that they can actually branch out and do more novel things. So routines should always be established really well before you are introducing any very novel experiences. And one of the most important routines is feeling like you have a safe space, a space in which your needs are being met. And for young kittens in the first months of life, their needs are changing. They're developing really quickly, and their needs are changing week to week. So what I want to do here is kind of talk about the different needs that kittens have during these various weeks, and how we can craft a really safe space for them that also challenges them in the ways that they need to be challenged during that developmental period. So starting with the nesting period, this is 0 to 3 weeks old. And this is the period in which, with a mom cat, they would really just be kept in a nesting box. Mom cats are so protective of their young. They hide them away in a place where they can't easily escape, so the kitten can't wander off. They're sort of contained. And they're also hidden from outsiders. At this age, it's not important for them to be socializing with a bunch of other cats or dogs or people. The important thing at this age is that they're safe, they're warm, they have frequency of care, and they're contained, so they can't wander off. So we want to try to replicate that for kittens who are in this nesting period time of their life. A nesting box, it should be climate controlled, soft, protected from hazards. We want them to be familiar with everything in there, because again, we're setting the baseline for their routines here. So we want them to know where their warm spot is. They know where their stuffed animal is. They feel that everything is familiar to them, so they can kind of smell, even before they can open their eyes or hear anything, they can smell. So we want it to smell familiar. It smells like them, it smells like their caregiver. And we want to limit extended periods of time outside of that nest during the first 3 weeks. This is not the time to be passing them around to all your friends or bringing them with you everywhere. We want them to really just establish that baseline routine. So that's what that can look like. It's a very, very simple and small world for the first couple weeks. But starting around 3 weeks, kittens are really starting to develop their eyesight. Suddenly they can see things around them. They can develop the coordination to actually interact with objects in their world, so they can see the litter box, walk over to it, and get inside of it. So at this age, we want to open their world just a little bit, just enough that they can safely explore. They can start to establish those appropriate potty behaviors, which is an instinct for kittens. They want to cover their waist. So when you give them an accessible box, they will start to explore that. But at this age, we still are really in the routine world. We're establishing those baseline routines, keeping them very safe, and just giving them a little bit of room to roam so they can develop their motor skills and their coordination. This is what they look like. They're like, whoa, I can suddenly see things, and I'm kind of curious about what might be over there. Really exciting age. These are my current foster kittens. They're about 4.5 weeks old, and you can see they're on the move. They're really excited to explore, but they are contained. Okay, I called this 5 to 8 week period exploration station because this is a time in their life where they really, really need to explore. And that doesn't mean that you have to give them full access to your house. In fact, I wouldn't recommend it at this age. If they can have access to a whole room, that's amazing. If not, that's totally okay. You can start to integrate different objects into their environment, even if it is within a playpen. But at this age, we want to start introducing them to novel stimuli. So things like toys or sounds or strangers. It's really important during that 5 to 8 week period that they are developing confidence around new things. This is when they're deciding how they feel about stuff. So they're going to decide, okay, how do I feel about people? How do I feel about climbing and looking out the window? How do I feel about that wand toy zooming over my head? So really important time for allowing them to explore. This is also when they're really trying out their coordination skills. I'm not sure if Jez made this this jump or not, but the important thing is that he's trying. At this age, we're giving them a safe enough zone that they can really try new things and see how they can properly interact with the world around them. It's an important time for confidence building. This is my foster kitten James, who I had this summer. James was born with no back legs, and the reason I wanted to put him on here is because even for kittens who have mobility challenges or a special need, we really, even and especially with these kittens, we want to give them the opportunity to explore in a way that is accessible for them. So, think about adjusting your environment to make it accessible for the individual kitten that you have. Modify play so that, you're giving this kitten opportunity to try new things and also to build confidence. This age, 5 to 8 weeks, is all about building motor skills and building confidence. And hopefully by 8 weeks of age, that's adoption age in the United States most of the time, we want them to be able to be masters of their universe. By 8 weeks, these kittens should be able to explore multiple rooms in a home from the safety of a home base. So at this age, what do they need? They still need a home base. They need to know, where's my litter box, where's my water and my food, where's a bed that I can sleep in. But we also want them to be able to explore from the safety of that home base, so they can go see what's in that room and see what's in that room. And ideally by this age, they will have some coping mechanisms to understand that sometimes there's going to be unfamiliar things and they know how to deal with it. This is a couple weeks ago. Some of my foster kittens who were deleting one of my presentations, I think, in this photo. But the reason that I wanted to share this is because something I do with my foster kittens live in a room. But in the couple days leading up to adoption, I like to give them an opportunity to just go explore another room or two. You can see they go like, wait, there's more? Like, there's actually more out there. And what I find is that helps them understand that there are different places. And when you go to that different place, even if it's a little unfamiliar at first, it's not necessarily a scary place. They have that confidence of exploring a new room. So when they do go to their adoptive home, they're like, oh, there's just another room here. That's great. Now, what are some nurturing routines we can do in their space? A huge one is keeping their space warm. That is a physiological need, but it's also an emotional need. It is telling them that they have somebody there with them. Warmth usually comes from mama's body heat. And so we want them to feel that they're comforted and they have their physiological and emotional needs met of being warm. So keep a heating pad on a low setting with them, with soft blankets over it. That's going to be so good for them. When you're working with them, maintain a calm, loving, and intentional disposition. So you don't want to go in there while you're having a really loud phone call with someone or arguing with someone. You want to speak softly. You want to speak directly to them. I talk to my foster kittens all the time. I sing to my foster kittens. It's totally okay to sing to your foster kittens. You want to handle them gently. You want to limit any feelings of powerlessness or restraint. So I'm not a huge fan of forcing kittens into a situation. I know it's cute when you stick them in your pocket or when you, hold them up for a photo, and doing that for a moment is okay. But if a kitten's trying to squirm away from you, consent is important for our interactions with humans, but also our interactions with felines. So teach them that they have agency to say, I don't really want to do this, and then let them not feel that they're being restrained. You also want to provide them with plenty of petting, toothbrushing, other soft touch, and of course, cuddling. Cuddling is essential. Grooming is a love language. Grooming is something that mom cats do with their young. And if you ever foster a mom with babies, you will find that they are so clean. She keeps them very, very clean. And that sends them a message that they're safe, they're being cared for, their needs are being met. It's obviously also a physiological need. They need to be clean in order to avoid having irritation to the skin or infection. So when you're raising a kitten, we want to groom them daily. You can use baby wipes, washcloths, a flea comb, a clean toothbrush to comb through the fur. And sometimes you might have a kitten who's really, really, really dirty. Usually that's, when you first get them in. If they have fleas or if they're truly filthy, don't be afraid to give them a little bath. Protect their ears, their eyes, their nose, their mouth. But I just always want to tell people, you can and should wash a really dirty kitten because it does send them an important message that they're safe, they're clean, and of course that they're warm. So dry them off after, warm them immediately, and that's just going to be so good for them. The other thing that I want to share is that familiarity is really important for young kittens. There are plenty of studies out there showing that kittens do develop preferences for familiar vocalizations. They can tell the sound of their mom versus the sound of a different cat. They develop preferences for familiar smells. So we don't want to change things up all at once. We don't want to take away everything that smells familiar to them, take everything that sounds familiar to them and just put them in a totally different space right away. Stress from too much change can be really negative for them. So my advice there is to kind of interweave familiar and unfamiliar experiences so that, they always kind of have that safety blanket, right? Think of it like their buddy system or their safety blanket, things that let them know there is some consistency. So for instance, if they're going to the vet for the first time, why don't you take their blanket out of their space and put it in their carrier with them? That way, when they go to the vet, they still have something that smells like home. When they get adopted, I like to send them with a favorite toy or a favorite stuffed animal. Keeping kittens in pairs is something that you'll always hear me talking about, but there's nothing better than having a buddy system if they're going to get adopted. And then, supplemental feeding, which I'll talk about now. I'm a big believer in kitten-led weaning, letting kittens dictate when they're ready to be fully weaned from, nursing with mom or bottle feeding to eating solid foods. So do not rush this process, please. We want to look at weaning as a process of at least 7 days. In the wild, mama would be, introducing prey to her young for a period of many weeks. And during that time, she's not expecting that they're going to just, switch from nursing all the way to eating, prey animals. She's going to expect that they're still going to be nursing for quite a bit of time before they can confidently make that change. So we want to do the same with our kittens. If you do have a nursing kitten, you want to supplement them. So you can let them have little bits of the wet food, and then afterwards, supplement them with a bottle or just continue letting them be with their mama until they're old enough to eat a full meal confidently and independently. That'll be at least 5 weeks of age before they can really get all of their caloric needs met through eating independently. But it's different for different kittens. That's why I call it kitten-led weaning. We want to follow the lead of the kitten. You also want to keep in mind that kittens don't necessarily know what you're trying to do when you're introducing them to wet food. especially if you've been caring for a bottle baby. They don't know what a bowl is. They only know what your hand is, because your hand is usually what's feeding them. So in this little video, you can see sort of how we can ease some of those transitions. This is something I do with kittens who don't really understand what's going on. I'll actually just put a little bit of the food in their mouth, and then they usually can eat it right off of my hand after that. Kittens who have been bottle fed are really good at eating from your hand. They don't always understand how to eat out of the dish. So again, we're interweaving familiar and unfamiliar things. My hand is familiar. The bowl is not familiar, but what I'm doing is kind of trying to say, okay, here's the food, and put it in the bowl, and then show Nelson that actually you can just eat it straight out of the bowl. So you can see here, then I'll take my hand away, and voila, he's able to eat out of the bowl. So that might take a couple of days of doing that before they really make that transition. But I think it's super important to do everything really slowly, lean into the familiar with your babies. And you also want to remember that mealtime is an important time for bonding. Mealtime is sending a message of, this is where your food is coming from. So you're giving them the food, but they might not know that you're giving them the food if you just put food down and walk away. They might think they just kind of found it. So it's important for you to stay with your kitten during those early weeks of them eating on their own. You can pet them, speak with them, sing to them, let them know that, food and you go hand in hand. This is especially important if you have fearful or feral kittens. Free feeding is the idea of, leaving food freely available to a cat. And that's fine if a kitten is totally social with people. But if you have a shy kitten or a fearful kitten, you definitely don't want to free feed. You want to meal feed so that they start to realize that humans are the source of food, and they will bond to you much more quickly. Okay, so we talked a lot about routines. Now let's talk about novelty. When I say novelty, I just mean different experiences, something new that they have to experience and go, oh, I've never been through that before. How do I feel about that? The important thing about novelty is that it helps them develop coping skills so they can actually deal with unfamiliar sounds or sights or smells or objects or people. It also helps sharpen the mind and stay physically and mentally fit, stay engaged, curious, active. I think all of us who have been spending a lot of time at home this year understand how important novelty is. We don't want to just have routine. It's important to have our routines, but we also want to have, new experiences sometimes. That becomes especially important for kittens from 5 weeks and older, because this is a time where they do have the instincts to want to experience some novel things, but they also need to be developing the confidence around novelty. So what I've done here is created kitten enrichment bingo. Maybe you've heard of the term enrichment. Enrichment is not just playtime. Enrichment is really anything that gives an enriching experience to a cat. So it could be anything that adds to their experience bank, something that they have to think about and that makes them go, ooh, I'm really curious about this. So what I've done here is just put together some loose ideas. You can come up with your own. But if you like kitten enrichment bingo, then maybe these are some things you could try with your kitten or even your adult cat at home. Try to get a bingo, try to get 5 of them. Decide that in 1 week, you're gonna try to get a bingo for your cat or kitten. Some of these things are, things as simple as exploring a cardboard box or watching a YouTube video for cats. Maybe listening to the sounds of other animals or playing with tissue paper. Drinking water from a faucet or fountain, or smelling new things. With some kittens, I'll just introduce them to different smells, like show them a candle or show them a condiment from my refrigerator. Not because I'm expecting them to do anything with it, just because you can see them really thinking about it and processing new information. So when we're doing enrichment or giving these novel experiences to kittens, this is what we're going for. Enrichment is something that makes your eyes go, wow. Enrichment is something that makes your heart thump, right? It makes them go, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And what is going on here? It might even make them a little bit spooked. I'm not sure what she's looking at here, but she's definitely sizing something up, probably a new toy. But even if they're a little bit uncertain about something and it makes them arch their back, that's still a good experience for them to go through, to have to experience something new and take in that information and integrate it into their experiences so that they can cope in the future. They have to figure out, how do I feel about this? Another really important thing that I think is important for enrichment is safe outdoor enrichment. Now, for kittens, you would want to wait until they are vaccinated, because we don't want to, take them out into the world unprotected. But once a kitten is fully vaccinated, you can start practicing safe outdoor enrichment with them. With my nonprofit, Orphan Kitten Club, we actually provide copies of the book Total Cat Mojo, as well as Adventure Cats to our adopters. And the reason for that is we want them to be well versed in enrichment and also in safe outdoor enrichment. So I highly recommend Adventure Cats. If you haven't read it, it's a great book for learning about things like harness training. But this is Cooper. I raised him earlier this year. And just a couple weeks ago, I saw him out and about with his little harness, and he was getting to explore the outdoors. And that's just such a gift to them. If you start them young, they're going to be able to enjoy that for their whole life through. Another really important thing is feline friendship. Kittens really, really do need feline friends. And I'm not just trying to upsell you on more kittens. I really do mean they need feline friends. Something that I always say is, one kitten is half a kitten, two kittens are a whole kitten. And you might think, well, I have a dog and my dog does okay, even though dogs are social. But think about it. Dogs have plenty of opportunities to see others of their same species. If they're going on a walk, if they're going to the dog park, maybe they have a dog friend who comes over and visits. And dogs integrate really quickly with one another, right? They meet a dog at the dog park, they smell their butt, and now they're best friends. Well, there's a reason that we don't have cat parks. And the reason is that cats oftentimes don't take too kindly to strangers. So something that is pretty amazing about kittens is they're really adaptive. They'll take kindly to anyone they meet. I've joked before, you could introduce a kitten to a dolphin, and a couple minutes later they'd be like, yeah, whatever, that's my dolphin friend, like, big deal. So they really adapt quickly. A great way to make sure that you have really bonded cats is to adopt a bonded pair of litter mates. Now, there's no replacement for having somebody who speaks your language, who has the same physiology as you, the same instincts as you. Even though we can be a great friend to a kitten, we'll never be as good of a friend to them as another feline. They really do need social interaction as well. So they're social creatures, they thrive in groups or pairs, and they learn a lot from each other. So kittens will actually learn appropriate behaviors by watching and observing each other. They tend to be less destructive when they have somebody else to interact with. And they also adapt really quickly when they have their friend go to their forever home with them. It doesn't have to be that you adopt two kittens. If you have a young and active cat, a playful cat, then adopting one kitten is great. We have a cat, Haroon, who loves kittens, and he is a great companion to our fosters. We do a lot of adoptions of paired kittens or kittens who are going to a home where they'll have a playful cat to be friends with. But what about with other species? Well, this is my foster piglet, Hugo, and I don't have any dogs, but I do sometimes foster pigs. So I've had many kittens get the opportunity to meet a pig, and I actually think that that is really good for them, because if they are going to be in a home with a dog, now they kind of have that experience of knowing that, okay, there's humans, there's cats who are like me, and then also there's, other types of animals. It's not such a big surprise to them. First impressions are very important when they're meeting an animal of a different species, especially if you're thinking about, introducing your kitten to a dog or a pig or any other species. We want to avoid any traumatic first experiences. So I would never take a kitten and just like put them in the face of a dog or a pig. We want to do scent swapping or visually distanced visits where they see each other from across a room or behind um, behind the safety of a screen or something like that. And then, you can slowly integrate them once you know that it's safe to do so. But they really do adapt very, very quickly when they're young. This is a kitten that I raised a couple years ago, Numpkin, and because he had that healthy balance of routine and also novelty, meeting other animals, meeting lots of other people, going through outdoor enrichment as a young kitten, now he is able to have this very enriched life where he's confident on a leash. He can go outside, he can meet other dogs. And, this is one of the most confident cats I think I've raised. But I think that this is for me something to really strive for, is giving cats that base that baseline comfort and routine, and then introducing the novelty to them so that they can cope with all of this and really achieve a very fulfilled future. So I do think that they adapt most quickly when their routines are carried over from babyhood into, being a teen kitten. So if you are an adopter and you've adopted a kitten from a foster home, I would highly recommend trying to carry over their routines. Ask the foster parent, what type of food are you feeding them? When do they eat? Do they have a favorite toy or blanket? What litter are they used to? What's their daily schedule? And then, once you've established that routine, you can start to introduce them to new things in your home. Okay, so last, I want to just talk about some of the behaviors that we want our kittens to have as adult cats, right? With kittens, they're bouncing off the wall all the time. And it's kind of, you're not sure what they're going to be like as an adult, right? But we want to know some basic things, like we want to know that they're going to have behaviors that are going to lead to success in a forever home. And one of the big things that I have to say is, when you adopt a kitten, you are adopting a micro panther. These behaviors of scratching and biting and climbing and pouncing, these are all natural behaviors that you can assume a cat is going to have. So when you're raising a kitten, you want to actually prepare for that in advance. You don't want to wait until you're saying, no, 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 don't do that. You actually want to preemptively get ahead of the behavior and give them opportunities to express it in a way that is appropriate. So the goal is never to suppress an instinct or a behavior. The goal is to help them appropriately express that behavior in a way that works for everybody in the home. So get a step ahead of these behaviors. That principle applies to just about anything, whether it's biting or scratching or climbing or anything else. Anytime you want to say no to something, you should be giving them actually just an even better yes. Don't bite that, but you should bite this instead. And you want to, not suppress that behavior, just redirect. So a good example of that is biting. Kittens are biters. They bite. It's one of the main things that people ask me about. How do I get a kitten to stop biting me? And I tell people, kittens, they are going to bite you occasionally because they're learning appropriate behaviors around biting, and they have that instinct to just put their mouth on something and chomp down. So what we want to do instead is give them something that is more appropriate. The reason kittens like biting your hands is because your hands move and they're predators. So when they see something moving, that's like, ooh, that's so exciting. I'm going to attack that. So what do we want to do instead? We want to give them moving objects that are appropriate to bite. So, kicker toys, rattle mice, things that you can throw, things that you can move around for them. Don't play with your hands. Even if it is cute when they're a kitten, I promise you it's less cute when they're like a 12-pound cat. It's not as cute. So it's much harder to break them of that habit later on than it is to just establish good behavior patterns from the very beginning. Don't scold a kitten who bites you. You just want to redirect. And you can even reward good behaviors with a treat, because remember, biting is hunting. And what happens in the wild after you hunt? You get to eat something. So you might consider rewarding some of those good biting behaviors with a treat. Kicker toys are your friend. This is Archie, who I talked about in the beginning. Archie had ringworm, so that meant that he was contagious to other animals and he had to be raised separately from any other kittens in a bathroom on his own. That meant that he was very, very wild. I can really tell you there is a notable difference between a kitten who's raised solo and a kitten who's raised with friends or with other cats. By the time he got out of his ringworm quarantine, he was just so excited that he was like, I have to bite everything. And that meant he wanted to bite my hands. He wanted to bite my feet. He wanted to jump in my bed when I was asleep and bite my nose. And that's, I understand it, but it's not an ideal behavior, right? So what did I do with him? I kept a kicker toy on my nightstand. And every time he jumped into the bed, before he could bite me, I would just give him the kicker toy. And over time, he learned that a kicker toy is actually more fun than my nose to bite, because a kicker toy, you can wrap your paws around it, you can bunny kick it, you can take it with you, you can toss it around. These different toys and objects are actually more fun than the target that they might choose of your body. So, give them those things. Eventually he got to a place where he just knew the kicker toy was on the bed and he would jump up and bite the kicker toy. And his behavior really did make a huge change. The other thing, y'all, is bitey kittens need friends. They really do need friends. Like I said, Archie was a little bit of a terror with biting until I was able to help him turn that around with kicker toys. But what I wish I could have done was introduce him to friends from a young age. I highly recommend raising them with another feline friend, because they teach each other those boundaries. They will actually yelp out when the bite is too much, and they kind of teach each other that this is an appropriate bite, this is not an appropriate bite. Here's two of my kittens recently, and you can see I love this photo of Kalu's face on the right. He's just like, oh my gosh, she bit me. But of course he's biting her too. So they're figuring that out together. What about scratching? The same principle applies. Kittens want to scratch, they want to climb, so you might as well give them something from the beginning that is appropriate, because then they will express that behavior on this object, scratching post, rather than expressing it on you and your legs and ruining all of your pants. Not that I have any experience with that. So scratching is a natural instinct. It's something that kittens start to do once they're about like 5 weeks old. They start wanting something to scratch. As babies, their claws are non-retractable, and then as they reach about 4 weeks, 5 weeks, their claws start to retract, and they want to be able to do the action of scratching on a scratching post, whether that's horizontal or vertical. So I highly recommend giving them a sturdy scratching post, doing it near an area that is like a family zone. So if this is your kitten in your home, put it next to your couch. They're gonna wanna scratch your couch if they don't have a scratching post there, because they're trying to create that family scent. They're trying to bond with the environment, and they think they're actually doing something sweet. It's not so sweet when it's your sofa. So what I would recommend is putting a scratching post near those areas so that they have an appropriate way to express that behavior. The other thing you can do with young kittens is you can actually handle their paw pads from a young age. So touch their paws, you can practice pressing down on their little toe bean and having their claw come out, just so that they get used to the idea that sometimes your paws are going to be handled. Obviously, I hope I don't have to say that we're all anti-declawing. Declawing is not something that I would wish on my worst enemy. So what we want to do instead is set them up for success with nail trims. So claw trimming can start around 4 weeks of age, and you can make it a happy time. Give them treats, give them, something delicious while you're trimming their little claws, and they may not even notice that it's happening. And if they do notice that it's happening, then they're understanding that this is actually a positive thing. You can do it every so often when they are babies. And you could even consider just doing 1 or 2, and then a couple days later doing a couple more, just so that they get in that pattern of understanding that it's totally safe and okay. And just to wrap up with that kind of similar thought, we want to prepare them for a healthy life ahead. We have to, as caregivers, take our cats to the vet. And we're going to be talking a lot about that, I think, in these coming talks. So what I want to say from the kitten perspective is we need to teach them from a young age not to fear the carrier. I took this picture this morning. That's one of my foster kittens, and he is being taught that your carrier is actually a really safe space. What I do is I just take the front off of it so that they can kind of see it as a bed, a place that's nice to go. It has a blanket in it that's comfortable for them, so that when they're ready to go get their first vaccines, they can go and do that and not be so scared of it. You can even do a practice run with your kitten where you just close them in the carrier for 1 minute and then give them a treat. When you have those first experiences with a veterinarian, you want to make sure that it's a positive experience for them. So make sure that you're, bringing that familiar blanket with them or a familiar toy. You can use pheromone sprays to make it nice and calm for them, and give them a treat. I do recommend working with a feline focused vet or a fear-free certified vet, somebody who's going to really understand having your kittens go through a calm experience at the vet, because that's going to set them up for success for years to come. So on that note, the next speaker is somebody who I adore. It's Ellen Carrozza, LVT. She is going to be just quickly speaking about vaccines with kittens. But I just want to say, again, thank you so very much to Cat Camp. Thank you to Pet Ag for sponsoring this talk. And thank you to all of you for caring about giving your kittens that beautiful big head start. I really believe we can make their futures bright by giving them this wonderful, nurturing, loving experience from the beginning, helping them build the confidence to deal with all of the things that they're going to have to deal with as an adult, and just really helping them know what it takes to have a fulfilled and happy life in a forever home. So thank you to everybody for listening, and we are going to hear from Ellen Carrozza. But first, let's watch this quick video. Thank you.